want to be someone who won't take no for an answer. I want to be someone who's brave and bold.
I'm Liz Sumner, and this is I Always Wanted To, the podcast where I interview people who are doing things that others long to do. What have you always wanted to try?
Find a ruin in a jungle somewhere. Or maybe I should just go out and do good, helping people that need special care.
My guest today is Annie Peguero. Annie is a high-performance mindset coach, helping women discover themselves through embracing their inner critic to create a life of impact and abundance. In 2017, she made a decision to go live on Facebook to ask for help in finding her birth mother. I want to hear that story. Welcome, Annie.
Thank you so much for having me, Liz. I'm so honored, and I love that you're shining light on not only my story, but this topic, as I feel like it needs to be discussed more. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So, when you were little, did you know that you were adopted?
Yes, I actually don't ever remember not knowing. My parents told me that I was adopted when I was really small. I actually don't remember the conversation. So it was either that I was very, very small or that it was super traumatizing for me, because growing up and as a small child, the thing that I really focused on was that I just wanted to be from them, from my parents, from their love. And I really struggled with that for many, many years.
So you felt separate? Tell me a little bit more about what you struggled with.
Sure. I felt that because I was not from them, from their bodies, from their DNA, that somehow, that made me different or separate, even though their love has been then and is still now so incredible and accepting. It was just something that I had created in my own mind, a limit that I put on myself, that I was always thinking and feeling that if I could just be from them, everything would be different. And it wasn't until, so many years later, just healing and self-acceptance, really, that I was able to overcome that obstacle.
What, if anything, did you know about your actual birth mother?
Sure. I had a lot of questions, and, this was back in 1975, and it was through, a private adoption. So the only thing that my parents knew was that the woman who gave birth to me was very, very young. That she was very young, and that she was Italian, that she was from an Italian family. And that's all that we knew.
And what were the circumstances that your adoptive parents wanted to adopt a child?
They had tried to have a baby of their own for 11 years. And it just wasn't happening. It just wasn't meant to be for them to have to conceive together. So they started looking into adoption. And at first my father, and they, discussed this with me so many times, that he was hesitant. He wasn't really sure. And he said, okay, well, if the baby can be from an Italian family, then we can do it. Because my father, his parents came from Italy in the 20s, I believe. And it was just the Italian culture and everything has been so very important to my family, their heritage, that they didn't feel that they would be able to know how to relate to another human in their family if they were not of Italian descent.
Wow, that's cool. Did you always want to find your actual birth mother?
No, I didn't. I felt, as into my 20s and 30s, I felt more accepting of my path and my journey. And this is what was meant for me. I knew that I was meant to to do something to help women, but I just wasn't sure what. And I came into a lot of self-acceptance as I aged and grew older. I felt that after a while I was okay with it. I was like, I don't need to know. And I realize now that a lot of that came from fear. I had a lot of fear wrapped up in what was
Mm,
I going to find. What if I was
mhm.
rejected? What if I brought up old, wounds that were very deep for another person? I didn't want to do that. And also the court process, that felt very daunting and overwhelming and not something I wanted to dig into. I didn't want to petition the court to have the sealed records open. It just seemed like no way. Like there was no way I was going to go about that. So I did spend many hours, many nights up late at night just Googling and
And
hoping that I would find
how old were you at this time?
this. I was in my mid
Okay,
30s
okay,
when, well, as long as the internet was around, I started Googling. So that was
okay,
probably in the late 90s. I started
okay.
Googling. But I really, into my mid 30s, I decided that I was going to kind of make a little bit of an effort to find her. Whereas before, in my 20s, I felt, that it just wasn't necessary. I didn't need to find her.
Mhm,
I had
mhm,
enough love and
mm,
also a lot
mhm.
of fear wrapped up in what I was going to find.
So when you did these searches for information, you learned that there was like a heavy duty court process. What did you learn in those Google searches?
Sure, I would Google like how to find adoptive parents, how to find or how to find birth parents when the records are sealed, or
Mhm,
things
mhm,
like that in Pennsylvania. And I knew that it was through Catholic services, and that's all I knew. So I thought about maybe going in person somewhere. Like I wasn't even sure where to go.
mhm,
I thought about writing a letter, but I was at the time a law enforcement officer with the federal government, and I was like, I don't even want to dig in to
mm,
this like court process or deal with any of this. So I just knew that it was going to be like a kind of a long road and something that I didn't feel ready, or just even something that I wanted in my life. It just felt too heavy for me.
mhm. So what turned the corner for you? What was your path to change your mind?
Yeah, great question. And that's really where everything changed. It's when I became a mom myself.
Oh, I just got chills. Ooh.
Definitely. Me too. Me too. What having my daughters, and I birthed them, um, my oldest daughter in an Okinawan birth center on the floor, on a tatami mat floor. I birthed my youngest daughter at home in a pool of
Mm.
water, and just the whole experience of being pregnant and birthing my girls. I knew that I had to find my birth mother and thank her for this beautiful life. Thank her for giving birth to me. Thank her for allowing me to then have my daughters. I know, I know it is. I'm sweating. Sometimes I'm like, is this my story?
Wow.
Is this me? But it
Wow.
is.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so moved.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. So you have your children, you make this clear decision. What happens next?
My husband, he's an active duty Marine. And at the time, when I had my youngest daughter, I think we were married for 6 years. And I mean, my birthday didn't come and go over that time without him saying, have you done anything to find your birth mother? It just became a regular conversation. Are you going to do something? I really think you should. And
Mhm.
especially after our daughters were born, and I was very open about how I was
Mhm.
feeling, and, he would encourage. And there was a point after my youngest daughter was born that I reached out to my mother, father, and the rest of my family. And I said, family, I'm going to do something to find my birth family. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how it's going to look, but I'm going to do something. And I just want you to know. And, everyone was like, sure, yeah, we support you, whatever you want to do. And it wasn't for an entire year. I remember having this conversation like around my birthday in 2016 with my parents. And then it was in January of 2017. My husband, who's an active duty Marine, went to Italy on a 6-month assignment. And he left around January 3rd. Well, the night before my birthday, which was my birthday is January 22nd, the night before my birthday, I'm laying in bed and I'm nursing my, I think she was 15 months old at the time. I'm nursing my daughter. And it just struck me, I was like, tomorrow's my birthday. I need to do something to celebrate. What should I do? And then I just was really reflecting on like the last, 41 years of my life, and just this self-doubt, this always questioning, this not feeling whole. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to feel that way anymore. I am not going to feel that way anymore. And it was in that moment that I made a decision that, little did I know, was going to change my life forever and the lives of so many people. So I decided that I was going to go live on Facebook the next morning, and I was going to ask for help in finding my birth mother. So I remember I picked her up and I put her in her little bed, and I went into my office and I made a sign out of Crayola markers. And it said, 41 years ago today in Greenville, Pennsylvania, a woman gave birth to me, and I want to thank her for this beautiful life. Please help me find her. So I, I texted a friend. I called my husband. I said, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Here's the sign, and I'm going to do a video. And they're like, whoa, okay, yes, we got you. So I'm like, if I don't do this, please reach out to me and remind me how much I was adamant that I was going to do this just the night before, like just in case I chickened out. So I went to sleep, woke up the next morning, got my girls ready for church. Now, I was never a big churchgoer, but I really felt moved to celebrate and to ask for higher assistance and to be in the presence of spirit in that way. So I did the video. I held up my sign, and it was backwards. And I took some photos and I held it like up over my face. Like I was still, as I'm doing this video, like holding it up over my face, like, am I really doing this? I'm still hiding a little bit. So I did the video. The video was like 1 minute long. I asked for help. I shared just a little bit, just about what was written on the paper, and then I turned the video off. Now, I had been going live on Facebook for about maybe 2.5 years already. So I had already created an online brand and an online presence on Facebook video. So needless to say, the people that saw that video were shocked. But it just started, like once I did that video, it's just started everything in motion, and there was no stopping it.
Wow. So what happened next?
I know, that's a lot, huh? Yeah, so next I just turned everything off, and I went to church, and I didn't turn my phone back on for an hour and a half. I gotten back into my car, and I'm like, okay, now I'll check my messages, check everything, turn my phone back off of airplane mode. And what I found was just like overwhelming. I mean, I had never imagined like what I was going to find. And I listened to some messages, and one of the messages said, Annie, you need to call me. You need to call me right away. I think you're my sister Marie's daughter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm calling right now. So I put my headphones in. I got my girls in the back in their car seats. And I'm like, I'll call right now. So I call him up. His name's David. I call up David and I say, David, it's Annie. Tell me everything. And he's like, whoa. He's like, are you driving? I'm like, yeah, I'm totally driving. It's all good. Like, I'm in DC, but it's fine. I got my headphones. And he's like, I think you need to call me when you get home. What I'm about to share with you is a lot. And it was in that moment that I knew that she had died.
We'll be back with Annie Peguero's beautiful story of finding her birth family after the break. Before we get to the conclusion of Annie's story, I want to take a short pause to welcome new listeners and followers and thank those of you supporting us at patreon.com/alwayswanted. I'm really glad you're here, and I want to get to know you better. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please email me at liz@lizsumner.com or message me on Facebook or Instagram. If you like what you hear, please share it with your friends and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. If you have time for a 5-question survey, I'd really appreciate your answers. You'll find it at lizsumner.com/survey. Let me know when you filled it out, and I'll send you a coupon code for a free copy of my online course, 8 Steps to Launch Your Dream Life. Thank you so much for listening. Here's the rest of the interview.
I knew in that moment that she wasn't alive, that she had died. So I drove home and I got my girls set up with a show because they were really small, and I needed to have this conversation. Like I said, there was no stopping it now. So I got them with a snack and a show, and I called my husband in Italy, and I told him what happened, and we asked David if he would meet with my husband Al and I over Zoom to have this conversation about my birth mother. So of course he did, and we talked with David and his wife Mary for over an hour, and it was a beautiful conversation, and he shared everything that I had always wanted to know for my whole 41 years.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. I want to go in 2 different directions. Both I want to know what you learned, and I also want to know how he heard. How did the message come to him? So whichever one of those you feel like answering.
Sure, I'll answer both. But first, let's start with how he received the message. So one of the first people to see my live video was a beautiful woman named Vi. And Vi had worked with my mother, my adoptive mother, at a hospital. My mom was a nurse, an operating room nurse for her whole life. And Vi worked with my mom at the hospital. Vi also was married to my birth mother's cousin. So when Vi saw this video, she was flipping out. She was like, oh my gosh, I knew it. No, these are old school Italians, so they're very, I knew it. So she immediately calls David and said, Marie's daughter is asking for help to find her. She is on video. And she's like, and I know her mother, and I knew she always looked like us. That's what she said. She's like, I knew that she always looked like us. So my birth family, I have 26 first cousins, and we all look like me. I always say I'm the second oldest, and they all look like me. So there was no denying, there was no question. It was, super clear. I had even purchased one of those like DNA tests, like the 23, like whatever they're called. And I decided not to do it. I'm like, we don't even need to do this. Like there's no reason to do this. Plus I didn't want my DNA like stored somewhere, but there was really no question. So in my conversation with David and Mary, they told me that Marie, my birth mother, was one of 10 siblings. There was 5 girls and 5 boys, and Marie was killed in a car accident when I was 16 years old. So in 1991. In 1991, she was driving in Pennsylvania, preparing for a trip to go to California with her parents. But during this trip, she was going to see my birth father, who she hadn't seen in, you know, 16 years since they gave me up for adoption. So, all of these things are racing through my mind, and all I had to do, all I needed to do, all I could do in that moment was just allow and just be at peace that this is the path, this is what was meant for Marie, this is what was meant for me to learn about my family in this way, and it is all divine and perfect timing. So I struggled with believing that for a bit, honestly. But what I received and what opened up after I had let go of this fear that I had around what I was going to find was like really like a core rocking experience. So 1 week after I did that video, the whole entire family was my birth family was having a Christmas gathering on January 29th, which is also my mother's birthday, my adoptive mother, which is also her birthday. So I drove from Virginia up to Erie, Pennsylvania, and then myself, my daughters, and my mom and dad went to Greenville, where we met everyone. We met my maternal grandfather. So being able to see my father with my maternal grandfather, sitting at a table, shaking hands, hugging, talking, I know that it brought so much peace to both of them, to my father and to my maternal grandfather, who lost his daughter all those years ago, and just knew that I was out there somewhere, but they were never going to be able to reach out to me through the courts because of the way that the adoption took place. Yeah.
And what else did you learn about who your mother was?
Yeah, she loved music. She loved to hang out with friends. She was very much a free spirit, but also she had gone through a lot of pain. Her husband, who was like the love of her life, um, died tragically in like an anaphylactic shock episode after receiving some medication or a shot at a care center. So after that, her life really took a sad turn, and I know that from talking with my aunts, she really had a hard time coming back from that. And many of them shared that when she was pregnant with me, they shared that there was just of course a lot of struggle. She was 15 years old. She was 15 years old. My birth father was just a couple years older than her. They were high school sweethearts. And there were already 10 kids underneath my birth mother's roof. And it was just, I was either going to be raised there with them, and there was already like not very much space or room or also what that was going to do to her life.
Mhm.
So I trust that it was a challenging, so hard. I mean, I don't even have words for what it must have
Yeah.
been like for for my birth mother Marie, and for all of her siblings, for her sisters who comforted her, who laid in bed with her
Mhm.
sobbing, you know, after she came home from the hospital with an infection because apparently they didn't give her the care
Mhm.
that she really needed. I had somebody reach out to me who was also giving birth in that same hospital in the room next door, which was fascinating. She told me that she was having her son at the same time my mother was having me. And she basically wanted to reassure me that they were talk like because they could overhear.
Mhm.
They were talking through. They were struggling. They were uncertain. But in the end, I mean, which was when she gave me up for adoption, I trust that it was she did the best that she could.
Sure.
My grandmother, her mother, they did the best that they could at the time. And in the moment, in speaking with David and Mary, and then meeting so many of my aunts and uncles and my maternal grandfather, just releasing that kind of anger. I mean,
Mhm.
why is this my path? Why did this happen to me? How could she?
Mhm.
Which is what I thought for
Mhm.
so many
Mhm.
years. And even after I had my own daughters, I was like, how could she carry me, birth me, and then give me up? So it was a giant mindset shift for me in just moving into a place of joy and acceptance
Mhm.
and love, and just allowing and believing and knowing that I am whole. I have always been whole. And I came from love into love. And that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned through everything, was that I have come from love into love.
Wow. Wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. And I sort of don't want to ask stupid other questions because I might put that at the end
But
because that's so beautiful. So you must have gotten to see photographs.
oh yes. So my aunts and uncles made me at like a box, a beautiful box, and inside of it, they put photos of all of my mother's siblings, so all of my aunts and uncles, and then index cards with written, who their children were, because there's
Okay.
26.
Mhm.
So and then great grandchildren, so I don't even know how many. So they made like a really beautiful gift for me and presented me with that, and also a family tree, so I could see it, I could look at the photos, and have that connection. So you can imagine for me what that was like not knowing another blood relative except
Mhm.
my own daughters for my whole entire life, to then all of the sudden be gifted this box
Mhm.
of just so many
Mhm.
people who have been thinking of me, sending me energy, praying for me, wondering about me, at every family gathering.
Mhm.
And I can't even imagine what it was like when Marie passed away. I know that my one of my aunts, Chrissy, had reached out to the adoption
Mhm.
agency and put like a note, or like a memo in the file, and
Oh.
said, if this woman, me,
Mhm.
baby at the time, if she ever reaches out, we
Mhm.
want to hear from
Oh,
her.
that's
We
nice.
want to know. So I know that she tried,
Mhm.
she did all that she could
Yeah.
to to make sure that I knew, if had I ever started the search, that I was welcome, that I was wanted, and that they wanted to hear from me.
Wow, this is so beautiful. Wow.
It's amazing.
And it must have been such a treasure for her family after 20 years to have a little piece of her come back to the family. Wow.
So much, so much. And we joke about it now that they just couldn't stop touching my face. They just were like rubbing my face and touching my face. And we were just like all the selfies that we would take, and we just could not believe. And when we went to the celebration, the Christmas celebration, among like all the food and lasagna and meatballs and sauce and everything, they had lined up so many photos of Marie, like chronicled her whole life from when she was a baby, and until she as adult when she passed away in her 30s, early 30s. So they had prepared this so that I would be able to see right away. It was so beautiful, and I'm just like, but as I share this again now, I talk about this, but not too often. I certainly don't share the whole story like this very much, and I haven't for a while, especially on somebody else's podcast. So this is just a really beautiful experience for me to go through it all again and to share it all. Just hoping that my story will inspire someone. And if this doesn't, like, if somebody's listening and they're like, well, I'm not adopted, like, I don't know, like, how does this apply to me? It is very much a story of recognizing what's going on inside of your body. I recognize that I had just an extreme amount of self-doubt, so many questions. I felt like I was never enough. I just felt like I was unlovable. How could I be lovable? My mother gave me away as a baby. All of these things. So maybe your story isn't exactly like this, but I don't want you to push aside what is coming up for you. And I'm like, well, what if I had not pushed it aside for so long? Like, what if I did this video earlier? Like, maybe I would have known my biological grandmother, or, and I have to forgive myself and allow and know again that it was all perfect timing. But if this story can inspire somebody else to not push aside their feelings, but really like go on an adventure with it and start to question why things are coming up, because that fear mechanism is there to keep us safe. I could have stayed safe, and not done that video, but what would that get me? It would just have got me more questioning and more doubt. And I had to release attachment to the outcome. Whatever I was going to find, I had to know and like really trust in my heart that I was going to be okay with it. And it didn't have anything to do with me. Like if I met a situation where my birth mother or their family or whatever wasn't ready for me, or didn't want to have anything to do with me,
Mhm.
I was prepared. I was prepared for that because I knew that it didn't have anything to do with me. It's just what it was. So, just noticing feelings that come up for you, and then trusting that you're doing the best you can and moving forward, not being fearless at all. Like, I don't believe in being fearless. I believe feeling the fear and recognizing why you're having the fear, and then being able to move through it. Because what's on the other side of that self-doubt, that shame, that unlovable feeling, is something that, like, literally you would never even imagine would be possible for your life.
Is there anything that, now that you have gone through this and gone through this process, if somebody were going to do the same kind of thing, are there lessons that you've learned or things that you do differently that you would advise somebody else to do?
Oh man. I think just trusting, trusting that you have everything inside of you, that you don't need to Google, and you don't need to, ask permission, and you don't need to, do all of these things externally, that you have everything you need within yourself to, again, recognize what's coming up for you, and then take action with what is in alignment with your highest self. So it does take some, being really honest with yourself about what you want, about what you are able to release attachment to. I went through so many scenarios. I did go through the scenario, like, what if she had died? But I guess I didn't really fully understand that, like, I didn't really fully grasp like what that was going to feel like, what that was going to mean for me. And I do want to
Yeah.
shed light on this.
Yeah.
After we left the church, this is beautiful. After we left the church and we were going to the restaurant for the celebration, my birth family drove me, like, to the cemetery where I was able to connect with my mother for the very first time. And they planned this out. My cousin's fiance played Amazing Grace on the bagpipes as I stood there in front of
Oh,
the I know, in front of the
oh, jeez.
her grave. And I remember, it was freezing cold. There was a snowstorm. It was January. And I just, like, collapsed to my knees, and which I didn't was not prepared for that type of response. And I just crouched down and I just said, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I grabbed, like dug my hand down in the snow, and I, like, grabbed the dirt, and I pulled the dirt up, and I just held the dirt to my heart, because that was her. Like, that was the connection, the earth, like my mother.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and my father came out with me, and he put his hand on my shoulder after I had been there by myself for a little bit. And he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I knew that, whatever happened moving forward, it was all going to be okay. I trusted that I did the right thing. I trusted that I was received in love and from love. And now I have this chunk of dirt, that might be silly to some, and I put it in a jar. And I remember, I'm like, don't touch that chunk of dirt in the back of the rental, So I took this chunk of dirt and I brought it back to Virginia with me, and I brought it to Okinawa, Japan with me, and I brought it back to Virginia with me, and it's in my closet in a drawer. And frequently I take it out and I just hold it, and it's just a symbol of root, of where I'm from. And I have so much thanks and gratitude. And that's what I want to share with anybody who's thinking about doing this. Wow, did I get messages, so many messages from other people who have a similar story, and they were, like, asking me advice. What should I do? And I mean, I want to be like, do a video on Facebook, but that doesn't match up for everybody. That's not, it's a unique thing for me. But if somebody else feels moved to do that, feels like that is truly in their heart, their desire, then I encourage you to do it. Do what feels right in your heart.
Are you open to people contacting you to get advice?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can reach out to me. My website is anniepagaro.com. Instagram, instant message is a great way to reach me. Yeah,
And I'll put all of your links into the show notes.
fantastic. This has been great.
So this must inform your coaching. Tell me a little bit about your work.
Sure. Yes, I help women. I'm a high performance mindset coach, helping women adventure with self doubt. So that whole feeling of, when you're going on an adventure, when you're seeking out an adventure, recognizing those maybe not so positive feelings that come up for you, things like fear, doubt, overwhelm, stress, questioning yourself. I help women lean into that to be able to create a life of joy and abundance. I mostly work with entrepreneurs, women who want to build a business online or expand, their already established business, but they feel stuck. They just don't know the next step. So different than like a regular business coach, I really help kind of peel back the layers and explore those feelings and take that a step further to go on an adventure to create something really beautiful.
That sounds very useful. Anything you'd like to say in conclusion?
Sure. I think that, I think that it's all about self-awareness. I certainly have a long ways to go. I'm always, we're all a work in progress, and we definitely, I do recognize and celebrate this huge, huge win in my life, for myself, my family, my daughters who now have biological, relatives. For me, it was just a smart thing to do also. And it's just recognizing and knowing that you are whole. You are whole. And all that talk that goes on in your head, it's just talk. It's just thoughts. And I just want to encourage all of your listeners to just be an observer. Be kind of on the sidelines, questioning why feelings are coming up. Then you're be more able and prepared to take action from a place of love and wholeness. Yes, this is great. I do want to share about my podcast. Also, it's called Adventures with Annie Pagaro. So thank you for this opportunity to share on your podcast, Liz. Has just been so awesome.
This has been wonderful. I had no idea I would be so moved. Your story is just exquisite. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
My thanks to Annie Pagaro. You can find out more about her work and her podcast in the show notes. I invite everyone to write and tell me what you've always wanted to try. I'm Liz Sumner, reminding you to be bold, and thanks for listening.